Right. Strap in, everybody. Today we're going deep, a real deep dive into a place you might not expect, the Delhi Sultanate.
Yeah, fascinating period.
You hear medieval India and you think
Right.
wars, conquests.
Mm-hmm.
But, how they actually govern all that,
Yeah.
how they manage such a massive and diverse, territory.
Well, you'd be surprised.
Yeah.
I mean, they had sophisticated legal systems,
Really?
tax policies that were, for the time, super innovative,
Yeah.
and a bureaucracy that, I'm telling you, would give any modern government a run for its money.
Yeah. We're talking like complex, organized.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so 1206 to 1526 CE, that's the Delhi Sultanate.
Right.
That's the time period we're talking about here.
Mm.
And you're saying that they were able to, create a system that wasn't just about, imposing their will.
No, no, no.
They had to work with the people who were already there.
Absolutely. Integrating diverse populations.
Right.
Having Islamic law and pre-existing customs work together.
And keep the money flowing.
Keep it all running.
Got the lights on.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's a story of, I think, unlikely innovation.
Yeah.
And we've got some really cool historical studies here that really break it down.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we get to the Delhi Sultanate,
Okay.
wasn't there already some pretty established stuff in India? Administrative systems?
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
We can't just jump into the 13th century, right? You got to look at what came before.
Right.
Empires like the Mauryas, the Shatavahanas, they had their own systems of governance.
Okay.
And one thing that's really cool that carried over into the Sultanate
Okay.
was how they incorporated the local lords into their administrative hierarchy.
So they didn't come in and just completely wipe out.
No.
Yeah.
They were much smarter than that.
So the alliances, working with...
Alliances, recognizing that sometimes you got to decentralize.
Interesting.
You can't micromanage everything. And cities and guilds back then had a surprising degree of autonomy.
Really?
Oh, yeah. They had their own self-governing systems going on.
Wow.
So you've got this very complex picture.
So many layers already.
Exactly.
Lots of
layers. Then the Delhi Sultanate comes along.
Right.
New ruling dynasty, new religion coming in, new ideas about how to run things.
Right.
Must have been chaotic, right?
You would think.
Yeah.
You would think it'd be completely chaotic.
Yeah.
But in the midst of all of that, all the conquests and everything,
Yeah.
they were laying the foundation for, honestly, a surprisingly complex administration.
Huh.
And one of the most interesting things is how they dealt with the law,
Okay.
right? You've got this huge territory, diverse customs, and now you're bringing in Islamic law.
Right. How do you make that work?
How do you unify that?
Yeah.
Big question.
Yeah. So was it like a complete redo, or did they try to blend it?
It was more of a fusion.
Okay.
Really fascinating kind of back and forth, like a dance between the...
Yeah, like a dance between two systems.
Right.
The Sultan was the top, right? The supreme judicial authority.
Like the final say.
Final say,
Yeah.
Like the highest court.
Yeah, okay.
And then you had all these courts and legal officials all over the empire.
To try to make it all work.
Make it work, yeah. Administer justice in this very complicated legal landscape.
Okay. And so did it work? Did this mixing of legal systems actually make things more, fair?
That's where things get really interesting, right?
Yeah.
Because you're aiming for this unity, but then you have things like the jizya, which was this tax on non-Muslims.
Right.
And so that creates a divide.
It's like a social and economic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Even while it's a source of revenue for the state.
Right. The jizya,
It's a tough one.
yeah, it's like, on the one hand, I get it. If you're,
Right.
In power,
Right.
you need to fund things.
Right.
But on the other hand, boy, does that breed resentment and...
Yeah. Yeah. It's a tricky issue.
Yeah. Okay. So speaking of taxes,
Yeah.
for an empire built on conquest, revenue's got to be pretty important.
Oh, yeah. Sophisticated system of taxation.
Right,
That
yeah.
was the lifeblood.
Keep it all going.
Administration, military campaigns, all of it.
Now, when you say land revenue,
Yeah.
you mean taxing the land itself?
Taxing the agricultural land, yeah.
Okay. So just measure it out, figure out a rate.
You'd think so, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
But imagine trying to do that
Right.
across this massive empire.
Right. With different types of land.
Different types of land, different levels of wealth, different...
And people who may not want to pay.
resistance.
Right.
Yeah, resistance from communities.
This is sounding really complicated.
Oh, it was a logistical nightmare.
Yeah.
They had intricate calculations, revenue collectors,
Well,
local chiefs
like a whole...
acting as these intermediaries.
Wow. This is complex.
It's complex stuff.
Yeah, and this is all before, like...
Computers,
Oh,
before spreadsheets,
right.
all done manually.
Wow.
Yeah, so you needed an army of bureaucrats.
Okay, so let's talk about this bureaucratic structure then.
Yeah.
This machine that kept the...
It was a complex web, officials.
Each with their own little...
Each with their own specific function.
Yeah.
Like a giant machine with lots of moving parts.
Give me, like, a peek under the hood here.
All right, so at the top, you've got the wazir.
Okay.
The wazir, the chief minister.
Right-hand man.
Right-hand man to the sultan,
Okay.
advisor, overseer of the whole administration.
Right.
Then you've got the diwan.
Okay.
The finance minister, the money guy.
So the wazir's the strategist, the diwan, not number?
Numbers, that's it.
Wow. And then below them.
Oh, then you've got tons of officials, right?
All the different...
Record keeping, tax collection, law and order, you name it.
And again, all of this done.
Manually,
Oh, wow.
meticulous records, documentation, absolutely essential.
It just boggles the mind, the amount of...
Yeah, it's like a puzzle, right?
Yeah.
With all these pieces.
Each one.
Each one vital.
Yeah, and I mean, language, you got to have a common language
Of course.
to make all this work.
Right.
So what did they use?
So Persian became the official language of the administration.
Persian. Okay.
Yeah, and that had a huge impact, not just then,
Right.
but long term.
On Indians.
On language, on culture.
Wow.
It's like this seed that was planted.
It just grew into something much bigger.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got this complex legal system. We've got
Right.
taxes.
Right.
We've got bureaucracy.
Right.
I mean, how did they actually maintain control?
Well, one of their key strategies was land grants.
Okay.
Jagirs, they were called.
Okay.
So they would grant this land
Yeah.
to officials and nobles
For their service.
for their service.
That's a classic, right?
Classic strategy.
Yeah, keeps everybody loyal.
Invested.
Invested in the success.
Yeah.
But it also created this interesting dynamic.
Oh.
Because these jagirdars, they had this land and resources, so
They could get a little too powerful.
they could become a threat
Right.
to the sultan's authority.
Oh, that's interesting.
So you've got this tension between central rule
Yeah.
and these potential power struggles.
So it's not just, here's some land, be loyal.
No. Yeah.
It's much more.
It's much more complex.
Yeah, you got to keep that balance just right.
Absolutely.
So was it good or bad for them in the long run? Do we know?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And it's one I think we'll get to as we go further down this
This rabbit hole.
yeah.
But I think what's clear is that the Delhi Sultanate, it's more than just like
Oh yeah.
conquerors.
Way more. They were
Innovators, organizers, builders.
Yeah, they left their mark.
They did?
Okay, this is blowing my mind. I had no idea how in-depth this all was.
There's so much to it.
Yeah.
More than meets the eye.
Okay, before we go any further though,
Right.
let's recap.
Okay.
So we started with
the influence of those earlier empires.
right, the Mauryas, the
Marias, Shatavahanas.
Yeah, those guys.
Yeah, got to understand what came before.
Right.
Then we looked at the legal system.
That whole fusion.
The fusion,
Yeah.
Islamic law, local customs.
And just how they
How do you maintain order across all these different people?
Right. And of course, you can't forget taxes.
No. The money?
Yeah.
The money.
Got to keep it all going.
Land revenue, the jizya.
And just the sheer scale of it, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's amazing.
Mind-boggling.
And then, of course, we looked at the bureaucracy.
Yeah, the machine itself.
The wazir. The
diwan, all the different moving parts.
Okay, so we've laid the groundwork.
We've got the basics.
Now, how did this actually work in practice?
Right, the big question.
How did it affect people's lives?
Yeah, did it make things more just?
Did it make things more fair?
Right.
And how did it shape the future of India?
So many questions.
Yeah.
I'm ready. Let's dive back in.
All right, let's do it.
Welcome back. So before the break, we were talking about this incredible administrative machine.
This machine, yeah.
But machines, it's about what they do.
Yeah. Results.
But what impact did it have?
Right. What did this all mean for the people living under the Sultanate?
Exactly. I mean, for any empire, especially one as diverse as this,
Right.
I mean, it's how do you manage all that?
Right.
Different cultures, languages, religions.
All trying to get along.
Yeah. How do you make them coexist under one rule?
Right. And we talked about that with the legal system.
We did.
Right. The fusion of Islamic law and everything else.
Right.
But socially, did they force people to like
Interesting question.
conform to one?
So they didn't have a policy of forced conversion to
All right.
Islam.
Okay.
Non-Muslims were allowed to practice their faith.
Or
There's always
the jizya.
the jizya.
Yeah. Right. I'm still kind of stuck on that.
Yeah.
I mean, like, part of me is like, okay, I get it. You gotta.
Right. Pragmatically,
Yeah.
you got to bring in the money.
But it's just inherently discriminatory.
Yeah.
And so how did that like affect, the day-to-day?
Socially.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It creates a really complex picture. I mean, there was tolerance, but this economic disparity is built right in.
Yeah.
Non-Muslims got to pay more.
Right.
I mean, that's going to lead to tensions.
That's going to lead to stratification, like who's on top, who's...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it shows you, even if they say,
Yeah.
you can practice your religion.
It's like this underlying, like...
Right. But it's a reminder of who's in charge.
Who's really in control.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's like, even when you're trying to do practical things...
Right.
There could be these consequences you don't even think about.
Right. Unintended consequences.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Yeah, it's complicated. And it makes me think about, like, even today...
Oh, yeah.
Equality, integration.
It's hard.
It's really hard to get that right.
It is.
Yeah, but I guess we shouldn't just focus on the jizya.
No, it's part of it.
It's part of it.
But it's not the whole story.
Right, and the policies, they changed over time, right?
Right, they weren't set in stone.
Depending on who was in charge.
The ruler, the region.
The situation on the ground.
Okay, it's all very fluid.
Okay, so it's much more nuanced than just saying like, oh, they were...
Right, black and white.
Tolerant, or they were intolerant.
It was complicated.
Yeah, there was variation. It was...
Adaptation.
Right.
That's where the innovations we talked about.
Right. The administrative.
Yeah, they had to manage all this.
Right. And just think about, like, language, right?
Yeah, communication.
Across this vast empire.
Huge empire.
Yeah, so many different languages.
All these different dialects.
So how did that work?
Yeah.
We talked about Persian being...
Right, the official language.
But so did everyone have to, like, learn Persian?
Not exactly.
Okay.
So while Persian was used in the administration, they didn't try to wipe out other languages.
Okay.
Regional languages still flourished.
Interesting.
There was a real mix of...
It wasn't like a replacement.
No.
It was like an addition.
Yeah, another way.
Facilitating.
Exactly.
But not eradicating.
Exactly.
Okay, that's really interesting.
And that shows you, I think, that they were pragmatic about it.
They had to be.
They were like, okay, we need this common language
to get things done.
But we also recognize that these local traditions...
Right, are important.
Yeah, they're walking that tightrope again.
Always walking the tightrope.
But centralization.
Yeah.
Local
autonomy.
Yeah. But even with all of that, I mean, there had to be people who were not happy.
Oh, of course.
Right.
I mean, not everyone's going to welcome...
Warren dynasty.
Yeah, you're going to have rebellions.
Right, uprising.
Challenges to their authority, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't all sunshine and roses.
Right. It's not like everyone loved them.
No, but they were able to stay in control for quite a while.
For a long time.
Yeah, and it's partly because of how efficient they were.
Okay.
And the alliances they made.
So it's like you give a little, you take a little.
It's got to be strategic.
And you got to have the military.
And you got to be able to back it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a multi-pronged approach.
So they weren't perfect, right? I mean...
No, absolutely not.
There were injustices, inequalities.
Yeah, and brutality.
Right, you can't forget about that.
Can't sugarcoat it. But still, I mean, to be able to govern.
I think it's valuable to study it.
Yeah.
Because it shows you...
Like the challenges.
The challenges of power, of governance, of social dynamics.
Yeah, it's almost like a mirror.
Right.
Reflecting back on
ourselves, even.
Yeah, seeing how, like, even though it was so long ago.
Yeah.
The same problems.
I'm still there.
Exist today.
We haven't figured it out.
Yeah, it's really fascinating to see that connection.
And it's a reminder that we're all part of this story.
Mm-hmm. This ongoing evolution.
Yeah.
Of how we try to live together.
Right. How do we create societies?
Yeah. How do we organize ourselves?
Big questions.
Yeah. Okay, so we've been talking about internal stuff.
Right. What's going on inside?
Yeah, but how did this affect what came after?
Good question.
The Delhi Sultanate ends. I mean, what happens to all this?
Right. Did it just disappear, or did it have a legacy?
Right.
And I think that gets to why this is so important. This wasn't just a flash in the pan.
Right.
This had an impact.
Oh.
And it's especially their administration.
Their innovation.
Their innovations, yeah.
Okay.
You can trace this through centuries of Indian history.
So it's not just about, like, how they ran things.
No.
It's how their way of doing things affected how India was run.
Exactly.
Okay.
And we mentioned the Mughals.
Right, who came after.
They came after.
Yeah.
And they took a lot of what the Delhi Sultanate did and adapted it.
Okay, but it's bigger than just the Mughals, right?
It's bigger, yeah.
You're saying it's like a whole...
It's this shift towards a more centralized, sophisticated kind of governance.
And that affected India all the way up to...
All the way to today.
Really?
You can see the echoes of it.
Wow.
In how India is administered even now.
That's incredible.
It's really amazing.
Okay, so it's like woven into the fabric.
Yeah, like threads
of modern India.
But modern India.
But give me some concrete examples.
Okay, so one of the clearest ones is land revenue.
Okay.
Remember how we were talking about how they
measured the land.
Well, these intricate methods
Yeah.
for taxing agricultural land?
Yeah.
Well, that formed the basis for later systems.
Okay.
Mughals used it.
Right.
Even the British Raj.
Wow.
And even after India became independent,
They were still using it.
land revenue was still a big source of income.
That's amazing that something from the 13th century
I know.
still has relevance.
It's incredible
Yeah.
how much staying power it had.
Yeah, but I think it's more than just like
Right.
the specific
Policies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the approach.
It's the mindset.
Right. It's how they thought about governing.
Exactly. They
Yeah.
had this enormous diverse territory.
Yeah.
They had to be pragmatic.
Right. How do we actually make this work?
They had to balance all this stuff. Centralization, local autonomy,
Keeping the money coming in.
Islamic law, existing customs.
Right. And not making people revolt.
Right. Keeping a lid on things.
Right. So many balls in the air.
It's a constant juggling act.
Yeah.
Just trying to find that sweet spot.
That balance.
That balance.
Yeah.
And that's what you need
Good governance.
for good governance.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what time period.
Yeah. It's almost timeless.
It is. You got to be adaptable.
Right.
You got to innovate.
Yeah. And you got to be willing to
Compromise.
compromise.
Yeah.
You got to say, okay, maybe we don't get everything.
Right. It's not about my way or the highway.
Yeah. And it's interesting because today it feels like we're so
divided.
polarized.
Yeah, we're not good at.
And not good at compromise.
Yeah.
And the Delhi Sultanate,
They figured it out.
for a while they figured out a way to make it work.
And different communities were able to, coexist.
And thrive.
Yeah.
Which is amazing.
It is. And of course, we're not saying
Right.
that they were perfect.
Yeah, there were definitely problems.
There were problems.
But still, I mean, it's
valuable to look at how they did it.
how they approach these challenges.
Because those complexities,
Yeah.
they're still with us.
The human desire for stability.
But in the midst of all this diversity.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
It is.
Okay, so as we wrap up here, it's like we've come full circle.
We have.
We started with just the
Right.
the basic administrative stuff.
The nuts and bolts.
Yeah, but now we're talking about like big questions.
Big philosophical questions.
Yeah, about how societies.
How they work.
Yeah, about power.
Power, yeah.
The consequences of what we do.
Long-term consequences. That's what history is all about.
It's not just like memorizing.
No, it's not trivia. It's about understanding how things are connected.
Think about like the ripple effect.
The ripple effect, exactly.
Of decisions made hundreds of years ago.
And how it still matters today.
Yeah, and it's almost like we've been like on an archaeological dig.
I like that.
Yeah, and we've unearthed not just like, the objects,
Right.
but the ideas.
The ideas, yeah.
The challenges.
Some big challenges.
And maybe even some
Solutions.
Solutions?
Maybe.
Yeah, and it's a reminder that the past isn't just like something we study.
It's not just a textbook.
Yeah, it affects us.
It shapes us.
It shapes us.
It's who we are.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think on that note,
yeah,
we should probably bring this to a close.
Yeah.
But I hope
I
hope it sparked some curiosity.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe challenged some assumptions.
Well, sure.
And given you a new appreciation for
this period that I think a lot of people
overlooked, but it's fascinating.
I came into this thinking, we're going to talk about records and bureaucracy.
Right. Dry stuff.
But it's so much more.
It's about the big stuff.
Yeah.
How societies actually work.
And what we can learn.
Yeah, the successes, the failures.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about.
That's the goal of the deep dive.
That's the goal.
You come out.
You're like, wow.
Like, whoa, I didn't know that.
You're questioning.
Yeah, questioning everything.
Yeah.
So until next time.
Until next time.
Keep exploring. Keep questioning.
And keep diving deep.
Keep diving deep.
All right. So we're back and ready to finish up this deep dive into the Delhi Sultanate. We've covered their administrative systems, how they balance different legal and social structures, and just, how they stayed in power for so long.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's time to, zoom out.
Yeah, big picture.
Big picture. What did they leave behind?
Legacy.
Legacy. That's it. Their legacy.
That's the lasting impact. Right, because, they had innovations, right?
They did.
And how did those innovations affect, Indian history going forward?
Well, that's the big question, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I think we study history. It's not just about, what happened in the past.
It's how it affects.
It's about, connections to the present.
Okay, so the Delhi Sultanate, they weren't just like a blip.
No.
They made a difference.
They left their mark.
And their influence.
Especially those administrative innovations.
Right.
I mean, that's something you can trace.
Yeah.
Through centuries of Indian history.
So it's not just understanding what they did.
Mm-hmm.
It's how their way of doing things
methods
affected how India was governed after they were gone.
Exactly. It's like a ripple effect.
Okay.
We talked about how the Mughals,
who came after,
they adopted a lot of those systems.
Right, but you're saying it's bigger than just them.
It's bigger, yeah.
It's like a whole.
It's about this trend toward more centralized, more complex governance.
Right, and you're saying this affected India all the way to
today.
Really? I mean, you can see the echoes of it.
That's incredible.
In the way India is administered even now.
It's like woven into the fabric of India itself.
Of modern India.
That's amazing, but what are some examples?
Okay, so one of the clearest ones is land revenue.
Okay.
You remember how we were talking about how they measured?
Yeah, all those intricate methods.
Those intricate methods for taxing agricultural land.
Right, yeah.
Well, that formed the basis for systems that came later.
Okay.
The Mughals used it, the British Raj.
Wow.
And even after India became independent,
they were still using it.
Land revenue was still a big source of income for the government.
That is wild that something from the 13th century
still matters today.
It's pretty amazing how much staying power it had.
It is, but I think it's more than just specific policies or systems.
It's deeper than that.
Yeah, it's a way of thinking.
It's a mindset.
Right, it's how they approached,
how they thought about governance.
Yeah, because I mean they had this huge diverse area to.
They had to be pragmatic.
Right. How do we make this work?
It wasn't about ideology. It was about how do we make this thing function?
Yeah, they had to balance all this stuff.
Centralization, local autonomy.
Right. Money, keeping the money flowing.
Keeping the money flowing, Islamic law, existing customs.
Right.
Keeping people from revolting.
So many balls in the air.
It's a juggling act.
They were juggling.
Always juggling.
Just trying to find that balance.
Trying to find that sweet spot.
Yeah, where it all works.
Where it all comes together.
And that's what good governance is, right?
I think so.
It's not about
it's not about being rigid.
Yeah, it's about
adapting, innovating,
being flexible.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting because today we're so divided.
We're so polarized.
We're not good at compromise.
No.
And the Delhi Sultanate, they did that.
They figured it out.
They made it work.
At least for a while.
Right.
They found a way for different communities
to exist.
To coexist.
And not just exist, but
thrive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is incredible.
It is pretty remarkable.
Yeah. Now, of course, we're not saying they were.
No, they weren't perfect.
There were definitely problems.
There were injustices. There were, there was brutality.
Right. We can't forget that.
But it's still, I think, valuable
to look at how they
to study it.
Yeah.
To see how they grappled with these really complex issues.
Right, because those complexities
don't go away.
They're still with us today.
Yeah. That human desire for order, for stability.
Yeah. But in the midst of all this diversity.
It's fascinating how, even though it was so long ago,
right,
the same problems keep coming up.
Yeah. We're still trying to figure it out.
Okay. Well, on that note, I think we should wrap up this deep dive
Yeah, I think so.
It's been
It's been quite a journey.
it has been a journey. We started with,
The nuts and bolts.
the nuts and bolts.
Of administration.
Well, we ended up talking about like
Big question.
big philosophical, like
Yeah.
how do societies even work?
How do we organize ourselves? What is power?
What are the consequences of our actions?
Right, right.
I mean, that's what history is all about.
It's not just like, memorizing facts and figures.
It's about making connections.
Yeah, it's about understanding like cause and effect.
Cause and effect, yeah, how things are all connected.
It's like we've been on an archaeological dig.
I like that analogy.
And we've unearthed not just like objects,
right,
but ideas.
Ideas
And problems.
challenges.
And maybe even like some
solutions.
Yeah.
Maybe.
and it's a reminder that the past, it isn't just something.
It's not just in a textbook.
Yeah, it's not just something we study.
It shapes us.
It shapes us. Yeah, it's who we are.
It's part of who we are.
Yeah.
And I think on that note, I think we should wrap it up.
This has been a fantastic deep dive.
It has.
I learned a lot.
Me too.
And I hope everyone listening
Yeah.
got something out of it.
I hope it sparked some curiosity.
I think it did.
Challenged some assumptions.
Yeah.
And gave you a new appreciation for this period.
Yeah, the Delhi Sultanate. Often overlooked, but
Fascinating.
so important.
So important.
Yeah.
So until next time.
Until next time.
Keep exploring. Keep questioning.
And keep diving deep.
Keep diving deep.